We're talking to Andrew Friedman of the Washington Update. You're touted as a prognosticator, looking into the future, giving advice on taxes. I just have some general questions. I went to Nassau Street in Princeton. I asked people, what questions would you have for Andrew Friedman? First question, flat tax, 10% flat. What's your opinion on that?
Well, politically it's not viable because it would mean that the wealthy would pay tax at the same rate as people in the middle class, and that's just simply not going to fly politically. But I do think that there's a prospect of us moving toward a flatter tax. That's what tax reform is. Tax reform means lower the rates, flatten out the rates, get rid of deductions, get rid of exemptions. I think that will be an effort next year. I don't know if it'll be successful, but I think Congress next year will consider trying to flatten the tax. Now, by that I mean right now the tax rates go from 0 to 35%. If we have tax reform, they might go, say, from 10 to 23%. So we go to a flatter tax, but I don't think we're ever going to get all the way to a flat tax.
So you're very good at dealing with the economics, the numbers, but also the politics.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to know what's happening politically? How do you catch the vibe in Washington?
Well, I read a lot, a tremendous amount, and that comes from being on airplanes a lot. But I also know through my work at the law firm a lot of lobbyists around Washington, and lobbyists, for all the bad press they get, actually, are pretty conscientious, and they're pretty good at helping me understand what kind of reaction they're getting to things on the Hill, and that helps a lot too.
It's safe to say then that you get pretty good first-hand information.
I feel I do, although I'd like to think that what I can bring to the table is not so much a lot of new information, but simplifying what is normally very technical and complex information. That's what I really try to do.
To the layman.
Yes.
Second question. Obama's chances via the economy. Do you think his chances for re-election are linked to per capita real disposable income? People perceive they have more money in their pockets?
Somewhat. I mean, obviously a rising stock market helps him. Higher gas prices, which makes people feel poorer, hurts him. But generally speaking, I think the question is going to be how independent voters vote for this time. And I have this feeling that the Republicans may have trouble capturing some of those independent voters this time, and that's going to help the president. Why? What are the Republicans doing that make me feel that? I think their insistence on no new taxes on anybody, no matter how wealthy, is going to offend some independents. They're concerned about social issues. I think things like guns and gay marriage and contraception, I don't think independents care about. So I think that the president has a good shot of just getting the independent vote, of making them feel that he's speaking to them. But certainly if gas goes to $5 a gallon and people feel poorer, that's going to hurt them.
And we talked about the euro. That's a worst case scenario with Europe and the euro. Greece leaving the euro.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the perspective of Europe, you have to expect that some countries at the periphery may leave, Greece being the obvious example. But there's going to be real pressure among many of the countries to keep the euro. There are politicians that spend a lot of time trying to build up the euro, and they're going to be hesitant to let it go. I think the big question for us in the United States is, does that come here? Does that crisis come here? And it could come here theoretically if, as Europe devalues all the sovereign debt, as all the debt of these countries is paid off with pennies, do the banks here in the United States hold so much of that debt that they have another capital crisis like they did in 2008? I don't believe so. I believe the stress tests the Fed has done. I think the banks here are fine. But that's the big worry. That also, by the way, would very much hurt the president if that were to happen.
Okay. That leads to rationality. Paul Krugman, who I don't know personally, I talked to him at a party, he says at the end he believes rationality will play out. Europe will fight to keep the euro. America will have to tax the middle class eventually. Do you believe in that? Do people act in their rational self-interest?
Yes, I believe people act irrationally until they have what I call a forcing event, which is an event that makes failure to act intolerable. Now, what's a forcing event? Well, we saw that last August where we almost defaulted on all of the U.S. debt because they wouldn't raise the debt ceiling in Congress. That was irrational. The thought the U.S. would default was irrational. Ultimately, that forcing event stopped us from having a terrible result. I think that Congress acts rationally when we have a forcing event, and unfortunately the forcing event for us, I believe, is going to be what's going on in Europe, but it comes here. We keep trying to sell more and more treasuries, more and more debt to finance our deficit. We're paying very low interest, and at some point I think the purchasers of those treasuries are going to demand more interest.
Right.
And then we have a forcing event because we can't afford to pay, and then people start to act rationally. Short of that, no, I'm not sure people will act rationally.
So you're saying people have to be backed up to the wall? fall.
You have to be in a corner. That's exactly right.
So human nature. A question I have to ask. This is younger people asking me. Gold. Does gold have room to grow, or is this just a fallacy? You got to hoard gold now in this dire apocalyptic time and put it into your,
I don't have a good feel for gold because gold to me is like going to Las Vegas. It's not used for anything. It's what you think it's worth versus what I think it's worth, and that means on any given day it could be worth twice as much or worth half as much. If somebody feels good holding precious metals, I'd recommend holding metals or commodities that are used in production. Silver would be a good example. Platinum, because not only is it what you think it's worth versus what I think it's worth, but they need it to build things. And as the economy starts coming back and more has to be built, that creates demand. So gold to me is a little too ephemeral. I don't have a good feel for it, which means I stay away from it. If you want to look at commodities that are used as natural resources, raw materials in production.
And final question, since you're based in Washington, kind of off topic. Washington Nationals. Do you follow baseball?
I have season tickets to the Nationals.
Are the Nationals for real?
The Nationals are going to be for real. They may not be for real this year, but I am a great believer in the Nationals. I am a season ticket holder. I used to represent baseball. I think they're a year or two away, but they are going to be doing well. And I will say also, it's interesting. The division seems weaker, even including here in the Philadelphia area. I think there's a chance they'll do better.
Okay, can you just give us a plug? I've been to your website.
Thank
It's
you.
easy to read for the layman.
Thank you.
I like your predictions. You kind of set forth what might happen and why. What's your website and what else?
Thank you. The website is The Washington Update, THEWashingtonUpdate.com. You can sign up for free email alerts. Some of the white papers on there are free. By all means, join us.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time at the Trenton Country Club here from Merrill Lynch. This is Adam Bierman, Princeton TV with Andrew Friedman. Thank you.